Future.
Good day, ladies and gentlemen. This is Bunsert of Radio Retro Future, and I want to talk a little bit about a subject that recently came up that I want to draw into a bit of a broader context, which is the future of steampunk conventions and events. And this is something that I mentioned several times before, but recently there has been some kerfuffle about an event in Germany called the Steampunk Jahrmarkt, which literally means the steampunk market. And it's a lovely event. The concept is very simple. It's kind of like literally a carnival in a old factory turned into a convention center. So you've got this Victorian aesthetic in the rafters and stuff like that. Wonderful. And then you have like these actual like carnival attractions from the 1950s up to the 1970s, 80s, something like that. You know, the kind of, literally the kind of stuff that I used to visit as a kid. And they're all free, so you can enter in. However, like some people complained about the price this year because, plainly put, we got less bang for our buck. I've been to the Steampunk Jahrmarkt about 5 times out of 7, so got quite a track record there. It's one of the few events I only go to as a visitor. I never been there as an artist, you know. And then we enjoy the carnival rides. It's not big, you know. It's for a couple of hours, but you know, you get to do a lot and get a lot to see things. And you got to see a lot of people. And it's not dependent on the weather because it's inside, which is also a nice change. I mean, that might be strange for non-European viewers, but here we do a lot of outdoor stuff instead of indoors. One of the things that I think bothered people more than the price and the fact that there was less attractions this year and less vendors, which might also be because it coincided with a Dutch festival called Carnival, and a lot of people stayed home because of that, I happen to know, so including vendors, surprisingly, but well, you know, people and their traditions, what can I say? People complain somewhat about, you know, snobbery. People who dress differently from the typical goth in brown aesthetic. Now, I promise I would not mention the person who brought it up. Apparently, he got a lot of hate for that remark. Yeah, there is this issue, and I mentioned it a lot of times before, that's when it comes to steampunk, I define it as one of 3 things, which is you've got the aesthetic, you've got the genre, and then you've got the costume culture. Now, I happen to do all 3 things. I write, I'm kind of like an art director, like I commission a lot of artwork, as you can see, and I create a lot of merchandise for my series as well, and I also do the costuming. However, for me, the costuming is different than for a lot of other steampunks. I noticed really quickly. You know, I went to the costume because I wanted to tell stories, because I wanted to depict characters and kind of like have adventures with them, you know, through photography, film, that kind of stuff. Like, I went with a real intention. I did not care about the social aspect, and that is something that I learned the hard way, that for a lot of steampunks, they really want to just look pretty, and they want the social stuff. They don't care about us creators. And the event in question was 2 days. The Saturday, it was like stuck full with steampunks in costume, a lot of the same. And the Sunday that I went, it was a lot quieter and a lot of, you know, just normal folk going there and having a look. And then, you know, it was kind of disappointing for me. I hope to see a lot more people in costumes, you know, because, you know, it's a steampunk event. But for us creators, and I'm going to include myself in that, it's better because non-steampunks are much more likely to buy stuff like what you've got back here. The steampunks, they only buy costume, clothing, things they can wear, accessories, but you know, the normal folk, so to speak, they are actually interested in supporting creators, buying their books. So for a lot of writers who were standing there and I spoke with, who encouraged me a lot, I was like kind of blown away for my support of my Kickstarter, really. Those, don't get me wrong, among the costume people, there are people that actually care about creators, but overall, and a lot of traders confirmed this, Many steampunk see traders as an invasion of their social club. A lot of steampunk Facebook groups do not want any form of traders promoting or announcing their work. We are truly seen as, I don't know, people just want to make money off of steampunks. But with that money that people pay also comes like the validation for your work. And that is just sorely lacking. That's why, for me, I am far more investing a lot more time reaching out to, indie comic communities, gaming communities, etc. Because it's far more likely that they'll back my project. If I look at the people who come in to my community, they're comic book fans, they're gamers, that type of people. They're not necessarily steampunks. Again, not to mention there are no steampunks in costume like that, but overall, they are very indifferent toward creators, and that also leads to the next topic. There's a lot of samishness in steampunk costuming. It's just the goth in brown, like semi-Victorian clothing they buy from goth stores. And then, maybe they'll have some like technological accessories, and not even that, mostly just chains and cogwheels, which is a shame. I have not really seen the most noteworthy steampunk costume I've seen this year was like a steampunk well, I'm not sure if it's steampunk Boba Fett or steampunk Mandalorian, but you get the idea. And that was about it. That was the most noteworthy stuff. Maybe the best costumes were on the Saturday. Who knows? Still, though, this is a steampunk event, and does not help that you see like the same steampunk plays and stuff and artists, that you've seen like on every other steampunk thing before. And that makes me wonder, like, some people complained there was a lot of snobbishness toward people who did not dress according to the goths in brown aesthetic. Like, I have not experienced that myself. I do not have your typical steampunk aesthetic either, as some people might have noticed. But that's because I care a lot about the story telling, and then the whole goth in brown aesthetic does not work. It's not a storytelling aesthetic. It's a, I don't know what, I don't know. It's a kind of aesthetic that I do not understand nor care for. For me, steampunk is like this unique storytelling opportunity, this unique way of world building with particular themes that, they do appear on other genres. Like I have said before, steampunk is not unique. But for me, when I talk about steampunk, I talk about the inspiration and where it gets all its ideas from. And for a lot of members of the steampunk community, or the costume community, I should say, they don't care. I mentioned before that they don't not know a lot about history, which is fine. They care about pop culture tropes, but even then, they are very set in their ways. And there's just this growing apathy with the costuming, because it's all getting the same. And the people who do make original things and original ideas, well, they lose interest. Why should I invest time in a community that does not respect what I do? And overall, like, again, I had a very positive experience on Steampunk Jaarmarkt. I when I was standing in line with my co-driver, all of a sudden this guy comes up to me, like he was dressed normally, normal guy, and he said, "Are you Bonsert Boko?" And I said, "Oh, somebody recognizes me." I was like, and "Yo, I'm your fan," and blah blah, and can I buy your books? And I was like, okay, I was kind of blown away by that. I don't mind it. It's something new for me that something like that happens. Like maybe I'll meet some random steampunk at an event, and oh, hey, Bonsert Boko. It's like, okay. And especially surprised in Germany, because I did not realize I had a real audience in Germany. So I was kind of surprised by that, because, yeah, you can go around speaking English okay. Like my German is very poor. Like mein Deutsch is nicht so gut. It's about as good as it gets. So I can manage when I really have to. I notice, like, and I'm really desperate, finding the way somewhere, or I need help. Then my German kind of like emerges to the top. But overall, my German not that great. That being said, like I had some amazing encouragement from people that I happen to respect, fellow writers that are far longer in the game than I have, that have developed a lot more than I have. Creators that get a lot of social media attention, who are like frothing at the mouth, in particular at the archaeology, what is it? Archaeology Companion. Sorry, I had a massive migraine last night. But so that overall, and then there was also the people like, oh my god, you were not wearing typical steampunk. This is awesome, and like people who really admired the costume that Marina Marisha, who I had on the show once or twice, has made for me. So, yeah, amazing positive reactions, and yeah, I'm expecting quite some orders from Germany now. So I hope, God, I have this expectation of the Kickstarter, and I would be so pleased if I actually make that amount. Anyway, that being said, the thing that Steampunk really needs to work on, here is my constructive suggestions, and I do know some event organizers, and I really want to talk with them about this, that organizers really focus now on getting steampunk groups, getting like the members of the steampunk community together and make this big camp. I think that needs to change. I think right now a lot of steampunk conventions and festivals are really focused on making a party for the steampunks. Completely understandable, but if there is nothing there, nothing new, no variation, nothing to see, nothing to promote, nothing to talk about, what's even the point of going other than keeping your social circle alive, right? So how do you do that? So my suggestion would be to focus events more on the creators. Not only do creators pay for these events, which is something that is not often talked about, like for a lot of organizations, and that's also the problem that I mentioned with the lack of respect for creators and traders in particular, is like we need to have them because they pay for the event. It's kind of strange, isn't it, that you speak so lowly of the people who make the whole damn thing financially possible. Now, of course, then there is the ticket sales that venues bring in. That's the deal that the organizers make. But a lot of the budget depends on the creators. But right now, all these events are seen as just a party for the steampunks, the people who come in costume. But if the people in costume do not bring much creativity to the table, what's even the point? For me, steampunk is about creativity, and through writing and through interacting with other creatives, I learned what the difference is between somebody who likes to dress up and somebody who actually creates. People who talk about writing books and people who actually write books. You notice those differences like immediately. So I can pick out like who is going to achieve anything creatively and those who do not. But yeah, I spoke to over 200 people on my channel, so yeah, I've got a lot of experience with fellow creatives, and I think, and a lot of steampunks are gonna hate me for saying this, but I think for the steampunk conventions or events, however you want to call them, to well, be relevant and be lucrative and be, what they should be. Conventions should be about, bringing people together, talk about ideas, talk about new projects, talk about, and also how to bring steampunk forward. There needs to be a lot more presentations. There need to be a lot more celebrities. There needs to be a lot more contests. All that stuff, to in make people want to come. And not just steampunks, but you also need to focus like on bring in the gamers, bring in the book fans, bring in the comic book fans. Get comic book creators in, see what comic book creators are doing, what are game developers doing. All these people are looking for platforms to promote themselves. And then it's not enough to say, hey, you're a comic book creator, come to us, we've got steampunks. No, you gotta focus, you also gotta bring their fans in, because they're the ones who will invest then in the creator that makes steampunk creators like myself, writers, illustrators, all that stuff, want to come back like, oh my god, I'm selling so good here. And then they'll have new stuff with them the next time, and you can have them let them have panels, you can have them let conversation, you can give them presentations and talk about their work, talk about their steampunk worlds, talk about how to build communities, because. And we can bring in the AI discussion a little bit. I mean, and somebody else mentioned this on the event to me as well. Like, oh, AIs are writing books now. Yeah, and I hear that they're good books, bland, but they're not terrible books. AIs can already write novels. So the hack writers are going to become obsolete. Why would you invest in a hack writer if you can buy an AI book that is just as good? And we can say, oh, AI bad, all you want, but rewriters need to adapt, and that means that rewriters must provide something to our readers, to our fans, that AI cannot, and that is community, and that is what steampunk events should be focusing on. Not just the steampunk community and like, oh, we're gonna have a steampunk party. No, it needs to build actual community that supports one another, that supports creators financially, that makes creators want to invest, build big stuff, and all that. Because the is it called the Pareto distribution, that 10% of people are responsible 50% of the production. Yeah, that goes for creatives as well. So you need to draw in that top 10%. And you don't do it by throwing parties and not providing anything for the traders, not anything for the creatives. They need to be catered to. And this idea from, oh, it's just a dress-up party. Well, for steampunk events to have a future, for these parties to have a future, we need to get rid of that mindset. We need to get rid. It needs to be creator focused, or at least a bigger part. And then the steampunk party will come regardless. But the mentality on how steampunk events are being made needs to change. Because if we just focus on doing the party mentality, oh, it's just a gathering for steampunks and we just happen to have some people who just pay for the damn thing, yeah, then why? Like, I have contacts with comic book creators who make amazing stuff, but they'll not come to a steampunk event because, well, that's not where our customers are. Why would we go there? And I have the same time too. I can go to a steampunk event where some people will buy my book, or I can go to a comic book convention where people are like, holy shit, that's steampunk, and they want to know everything about my universe. Guess where I'm gonna go? Just saying, huh? So yeah, so that's why I said, like, I met a writer and she was very glad on Sunday that normal people were coming because they are far more inclined to buy books. You know, And that's a major difference in sales numbers and therefore in funding that they require to create more and keep it interesting for both themselves and for anyone who comes to attend these festivals. So yeah, that is basically my major suggestion on the future of steampunk events. I know I'd be grateful if that change takes place. Will it change? Now that's gonna depend on the organizers because they're the ones who are holding the keys. So yeah. Let me know what you think. What would you like to see different in steampunk events? What do you think will help people change the costuming, make that undergo an evolution, and all that? And of course, put steampunk on the map as something that people want to see because there is demand for steampunk, folks. There is. We're just doing a terrible job bringing it to the people. That's the problem. That is what we need to do. And especially, not just the steampunk events need to change tactics and then change mentality. The same goes for the writers because right now, steampunk writers as a group is, well, we're on our own island. I'm one of the few steampunk creators out there actually reaching out to other authors, inviting them on my podcast, talk about what is it that you do, where do you get your inspiration from, what does the perfect steampunk book look according to you, and so on. We need to have this discussion, and we need to get our readers into that discussion, and the same goes for the events. Like, how do we get new blood, new people, and how do we get them involved? Because if someone can create a steampunk, imagine somebody creates like an accessible steampunk franchise, that people love to dress up as, and that you actually get like steampunk cosplayers actually cosplaying steampunk books or steampunk short films or games. Why are there no Frostpunk cosplayers? I know there are just not in the steampunk community, which is kind of weird when you think about it. It's a best-selling game, and no one in the steampunk community, costume community, takes notice of that. Isn't that odd? And that's my way of saying that the steampunk community has become quite inclusive in that regard. So, yeah, we need to change that. Okay, I'm really going to send you off. Folks, don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. And yes, I would love to hear your suggestions. I am going to reach out to some event organizers and ask their ideas about this, their thoughts on it. And, of course, if you have not already, please follow us on Kickstarter, even if it's just a follow. If you cannot afford supporting us next Wednesday, $1 is already enough because a backer is a backer, and that means a lot in terms of coverage. So please do that. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I'm gonna bid you adieu. And as always, make things your way. Goodbye.